So today I want to talk about the AGD Duets. I feel the tech inside of these amps is the only way forward for the future of high-end hi-fi. These are beautiful, artistic amps made with passion from the company's owner. They're made right here in the United States. They look special, they're small, they're light, they don't run hot. Whew! Let's talk about the AGD Duets, and I'll even talk a little bit about the Audion Mark IIIs. Let's go.
Well, late over in the evening, I feel like blowing my horn. Well, I woke up this morning, all I had was gone, late over in the evening.
I'm going to share the unboxing here before we get to the meat of this, as I talk about the design and everything that goes into these amps. And I'm just reading the design philosophy off of the AGD website. It says the AGD DUET MONOBLOCK amplifier is the newest addition to our state-of-the-art high-end power amplifier family. The AGD DUET is our first compact monoblock amplifier using 100% gallium nitride power MOSFET design for both the output power stage and the power supply. The AGD Duet is rated at 300 watts per channel into 4 ohms, and it does 150 watts into 8. This says to achieve these performances in such a compact CNC machined cabinet that is available fully polished or anodized black, we have designed a new power supply by utilizing the most advanced HV GaN MOSFET available in the market today. We also designed a new motherboard for the AGD Duet with a low noise linear supply rail, as well as an analog buffer stage based on AD797 op amps. It also says with the Duet, we have extended the use of the most advanced power semiconductor GaN MOSFET also to the power supply stage, enabling an increased output power rating and efficiency. The new GaN power output stage, based on a new set of discrete high voltage GaN MOSFETs, can operate up to 800 kilohertz and at elevated slew rates, delivering the most sublime sound thanks to its ideal by-the-book oscillation-free switching performances. The AGD company, the amps are made right here in the United States, in California. This company is head up by Alberto Guerra, and he creates these beautiful artistic pieces of audio that happen to not only look amazing, but sound next level. And I mean that, next level. We have music, right, that we can play through Bluetooth speakers. That's one level. We have music that we can play through a mid-fi, mid-tier system that we pick up at, say, Best Buy. That's like going into the mid-tier. Then we have a higher mid-tier. Then we have the high-end tier, right? And then we have the exotic tier. And then I'm going to say somewhere between the high-end and the exotic, we have these AGD amps that are truly next level. Now, AGD sent me the Duets to review in black. They also sent me a pair of their very well-known Audion Mark III amplifiers. The little boxes that have this big tube coming out of it. Looks like a tube amplifier. It is not. The Audion, in my opinion, are one of the most genius designs in amplifier history. Yeah, I said that. So why the Audion Mark III is such a genius design is that this tube looks like it's a KT88 tube bottle, right? But inside of this glass is the GaN-based Class D module that Alberto has designed for his amps. So anytime you want to upgrade the amp, instead of making a Audion full redesign and you have to buy a new amp for $7 or $8 grand, when Alberto comes out with a major upgrade, instead of making an all-new amp that you have to buy and lose money on the old one, you just buy an upgraded tube for $1,500. It plugs right in. You then have the brand new amp module, the new sound, whatever that may be. But it's genius that you can just buy upgraded tubes. And they're now on the 3rd version, which means whoever bought the first version, you can actually have 3 different amps by having those 3 different tubes, different sound signatures. I think that's pretty genius for a solid state design, and I could care less if it looks like a tube amp, and it's not, because it sounds just as good as most tube amps I've heard, and I'll touch on that in a bit. You hear a lot of people who buy these AGD amps talk about the set kind of sound, the single-ended triode kind of sound that you get from them. So these use a GaN-based amplifier, that's gallium nitride. And these are the new tech going into some of these Class D amps. And these amps here, the Class D module, the GaN modules, were made specifically for audio. These were designed for audio, not pulled out of some power supply. These amps are not those cheap amps you see on Amazon for a couple $100. Those amps are okay if you want something for a month or two to tide you over, but they're highly unreliable. They sound flat, they're noisy. That's not what real Class D today is about. Yes, these Duets, the Audions, are Class D, but this is a Class D. If you haven't heard the AGD amps, you've never heard Class D sound like this. Now, there's some really top-tier stuff in the Class D world. Jeff Rowland Designs makes some killer Class D amps that, in my opinion, sound better than a lot of these high buck A, B, or even Class A amps. So there are some companies making beautiful Class D amps. So Alberto sent me the Audion Mark IIIs. He also sent me a set of the Duets in black, which I believe is his latest addition to his amplifier lineup. Now he sells a few levels of amps over at the website, and he also sells a couple of preamps as well as the upgrade tubes that you can add to the Audion. So I first put in the Audion. Let's get this out of the way. I put them in the system, right? And the first thing I noticed when I hooked them up to my Triangle 40th Duettos, or the speakers I tried first, was wow, it's like I'm hearing these speakers for the first time. I powered these speakers with many great amps. An integrated amp, the Yamaha AS3200, made them sing beautifully. The Gallion TSA 75 gave them a little more electricity and airiness in the top end. I tested them with a Pass Labs power amp, and they were a little more juicy in the mid-range and a little more extended in the treble. When I hooked up the Audion Mark IIIs to those triangles, it's as if that mid-range became very luscious, very rich, very floaty, came out a little bit. It wasn't recessed. The top end was extended and silky, but very high resolution. The bass was absolutely incredible. Now, I've had some great bass amps in here, and of course you have to have the speakers that go down low enough so you can appreciate what these amps can do. But I gotta say, I was crazy impressed with the bass of the Audion Mark IIIs. It was present in quantity, yet it was tight and controlled, but not so much where it's tight and controlled that it makes the speakers sound lean. Sometimes when bass is controlled so tightly in some of these high-end speakers, it almost sounds like there's no bass. They're a little lean. But with the Audion amps, the bass is textured, right? And it has a tangible presence to it. I was very impressed. The mid-range had a little warmth to it, though. So the mid-range wasn't as open as I was used to, say, with the other amps I was trying. I then threw in some other speakers, the Borison X2s. Big, warm, luscious, again, almost the opposite of what the Forte 1 amp did with the X2s. Very beautiful presentation with the Audions. I then hooked up my Augie and Bob combo. And again, it was like I was hearing them for the first time. Absolutely the best I've heard the Augie and Bob sound, right? I then put in the Pearl Acoustic speakers, and holy cow, the instrument separation with these speakers is on another level from any other speaker I have. The way instruments, first of all, sound so realistic, but the way they separate from the mix. But these Pearl Acoustic speakers aren't the best with rock or metal or EDM. They're more of the classical, jazzy, vocal, instrumental type of vibe. But for that, they are rather special. Again, special is the key word here. So the Audions played beautiful music with all of these speakers, but this is not a review of the Audions. This is a review of the Duets, right? And I put the Duets in after about a week or two with the Audions. I put the Duets in and I instantly heard the difference. And at first I wasn't sure on it. I was like, I think I like the Audions better because they had a little more euphonic vibe in the mids. Very little difference, but it was there. The Duets were cleaner in the mids, but still full. There was more snap and clarity, but yet there was still body. I was hearing those layering in the music. I was sitting here listening to some saxophone instrumental, and there's piano and little strings in the background. And I was hearing the strings as if they were 3 or 4 feet behind the sax in such a clear, detailed way. But these strings weren't thin and piercing to my ear. They had body, and it sounded like real strings being played. The saxophone was ever present and three-dimensional in the room. It was absolutely a beautiful experience. Now, this is with the Borison X2s. The Duets cleaned up the mids a little bit versus the Audions and had a bigger, bolder sound, but it was still very rich and very set-like. Now, a lot of people say these sound like single-ended trios, and in some ways they absolutely do. I've heard other amps where people made that claim and it fell short for me, but there's something tangible about these AGD amps, and especially the Duets. They are super refined. And what I mean by refined is there's no scratchiness, there's no grayness, there's no nature in the music that makes you feel that you're listening to digital. Even if you throw on an old 80s digital crappy recording, you're not going to hear any sign of digititis. These amps sound very analog, and they do have a set-like mid-range and a set-like top end. Very beautiful, haunting at times, three-dimensional. Some of the finest music I've heard in this space has been with the Duets and the Borison X2. And I have some great memories of some great speakers and amps in here. The Fleetwood DeVilles still have a place in my heart. There's so many speakers and amps I love and have heard. I've heard Class A, Class AB, Class D, and I've heard GaN amplifiers in the past as well. The Rose RA180. I heard that when that first came out for a while, and I liked it, but I didn't love it. These amps are on a different level from any Class D or GaN amp that I've heard. Any, period. I would say it's on another level from most solid state, from any and all Class AB amps I've heard. I've heard a Class A amp or two that can kind of stand toe-to-toe with it, but it's just more about being different than being better. There is no such thing as better in audio, because what's better for me may not be better for you. It doesn't exist in the grand scheme of things. It only exists personally, the best. There is no such thing. I have an amp here from Galleon from Thomas & Stereo, his A20, his passion project amp. It's Class A, 20 watts per channel. He spared no expense in making it, all expensive primo parts. This thing is silent as a mouse. It doesn't run super hot. It just gets warm. And the sound is super refined, like a $10,000, $15,000 amp, and that's no joke. His TSA 75 is a giant killer, but it can't kill the A20. That's what I'll just say right here, right now. That amp, compared to the Duets, was a similar vibe, but the Class A Galleon had a little more thickness in the mids, maybe 90% of the resolution of the Duets. The Duets did the layering better. It was a little cleaner in the mids, and that really helped to open up the music, though I really gotta say that A20 is fabulous. I'll talk more about that in a separate video. So more about the AGD sound. The Duets sounded beautiful with every speaker I have here. The Augie and Bob, oh my goodness, I called those the speaker of the gods for a reason. When they are set up just right in the right space and they have the right power behind them, they are absolute pure magic. They're kind of a little bit of a pain to move around and set up because they're 3 pieces each. So I don't keep them in here all the time because I have to move other speakers in and out. The second favorite, I think, is the Borison X2 with the Duets. Such a rich, beautiful, deep, kind of layered see-through sound, but it has that bass and body and warmth that makes you just feel like you're wrapped up in a layer of music, though it's not warm and dull at all. They're three-dimensional, holographic. The X2s are fine speakers. Perfect mate with the AGD amps. What I love about the AGD amps is, yeah, they're expensive, but they're not in that exotic realm of pricing. They're in the high-end realm of pricing. At 11 grand and some change, the Duets are probably some of the finest amps that you can find under $30,000. And I'm going to tell you why these AGD amps are so special. I'm going to give you a few reasons why. Number one, they're small, they're light, and they run only a little bit warm. They don't get hot, right? Number two, they are beautiful to look at in the polished or the black with the red acrylic button and the AGD logo in the front. These are some really cool, passionately designed amps. And I could tell just by looking at, feeling them, that passion was gone into these. This is not just a money grab of, hey, look at my new shiny object. I'm going to charge you a fortune for this. These are really works of art, these Duets, whether you go for the black or the polished, right? So in that regard, they're beautiful to boot. So you got light, small, runs cool, works of art. They cost pennies to run. These are efficient amps. They're not going to cost you an arm and a leg like some big power-hungry amps do. When I had the monoblocks in here, Past Labs XA60.8, my electric bill shot up every month, and they acted as a heater in this room. Plus, they were, what, 90 pounds a piece, breaking my back. These are a few pounds. These are just beautiful to look at, and they don't get hot. And I don't know if I should say it, but they sound better to me than those big amps. It just is what it is. I don't know why I need to try to hide my true thoughts. So you got those three reasons alone right there. The sound is otherworldly. It's next level. It's beautiful. It's everything anyone could ask for. And if you don't want to believe me, Google online. Go to Google and put AGD amps forum. And there'll be people talking about them in the forums and people who actually bought them sharing their experience with them. And you will hear them say things like I'm saying here. Most of them say endgame amps, they will live with them forever, you know, that kind of thing. And they really are. They're heirloom quality. That's another thing. These are amps that if you hold on to them, you can pass them down to your kids if they're into that kind of thing. They're that beautiful. Another pro is the way they ship them. They'll never be damaged. I talked about that as well. Another thing, these amps are completely silent. Now, I've had a lot of big, heavy boxes in here. I'd plug them in. There'd be a little buzz or a hum from the transformer. Maybe there'd be a little hiss from the speakers. These Duets and the Audions are completely silent. I put my ear up to the enclosure while it's on. I hear nothing. I put my ear next to the speaker. You know, I hear that if I'm up to the tweeter, you might hear a little bit of something. But man, these are some of the quietest amps I've had the pleasure to listen to. These things just have an all-out sense of effortless power. No matter what speaker I hooked up to these, of the 7 that I did, none of them, they weren't phased. The amp wasn't phased. It was just powerful, effortless, no sign of strain, no matter how loud I turned it up. And when I turned it up, the sound stayed smooth, refined, and composed instead of getting raggedy and out of control. So there are many reasons why these are special amps when you compare it to some big boxes, right? Now, I've heard some amazing amplifiers. There are classics. There are beautiful amplifiers out there from many companies that will deliver beautiful music. It all comes down to your tastes, right? As I was listening to these Duets day in, day out, and putting back the Audions, I decided the Duets were for me, I preferred them to the Audions at the end of the day. I liked the Duets so much that when I was thinking about sending them back, I started to get a little, I didn't feel good. I was like, no, these have done such great things in my system. And some will say, well, you said that about the Daniel Hertz system. What happened to that? the Daniel Hertz Maria Class D. Now, the Daniel Hertz Maria is a mighty fine sound as well, but their Maria amp is not built to the same level, in my opinion, as the Duets. They use Perspex instead of the metal. The RCA connectors on the back of the Maria are a little, I don't know, they're not as solid. And the key thing with the Maria is it's tuned. They tune it at the factory to whatever speakers that you buy with it. And it's really meant to be paired with the Daniel Hertz speakers. When I had the Maria and the amp was tuned specifically to the amber. So when I used the amp with other speakers, with some speakers it sounded really good, but it had such an overwhelming bass presence because it was tuned to add more bass to those amber speakers. It didn't always jive well with other amps. Daniel Hertz sound is up there with the best, for me, my taste, personally, that I've heard. Analog-like, smooth, beautiful. Now the AGDs do this as well, but the AGDs seem to have a little more inner resolution that they dig out from your speakers. Those little details, and they come out gently, almost in an ethereal way when everything is just right and if your speakers are up to it. But as soon as these Duets were put in, man, it was a whole different ball game. So I contacted Alberto and said, I want to buy the Duets and the Alto preamp, but I want the Duets in the polished version you sell. They look so beautiful. So we worked out a deal. I ordered the polished Duets and the Alto 2 that he sent. I said, I want to keep this one here. I spent 5 figures, wired him some money, and I had to sell off some other gear to pay for these, and I'd have no regrets. The Duets are a very special piece. And they just go well with every speaker I have here. And I've never heard an amp do that, play so well with every speaker. But I really love the Duets for the reasons I talked about, like the small size, the fact that they run cool, the fact that they're cheap to run, the fact that they're beautiful and artistic, and the fact that they're unique, as no other Class D amp has what is inside of these amps from AGD. They're kind of proprietary, from what I understand, to AGD, and they were created in part by Alberto, who really seems to know his stuff. He's created some beautiful amps. I'll stop gushing about them, but they are absolutely gorgeous. So the polished ones came in. I have them set up, and I just can't stop listening. While the Alto 2 does have a streamer, it works great with Roon. You can stream Tidal and Qobuz and use AirPlay, but I still love my HiFi Rose RS-130 streamer, so I have that going right to the DAC of the Alto 2. It eliminated the need for an external DAC because the internal DAC is fabulous. The Alto 2 also has a killer phono stage, moving coil and moving magnet, and it ships with a metal Apple-style remote. I'll talk more about the Alto in the future, but I just wanted to let you guys know that AGD amplifiers are the real deal. They're expensive, but I mean, if you really think about it, the Duets at just over $11,000, if you really think about it, well, I know within me that it's a bargain because they compete with amps in the $20, $30, $40, even $50,000 range when it comes to sound, and just look at them. Beautiful. Now the polished, I probably should have stuck with black, but I just love the look of the polished because I think they'll scratch easy. They're fingerprint magnets, so when I move them, I'll have to wear the gloves they come with. They ship with a set of gloves. One more thing, AGD products ship with audiophile style power cords in the box. They're not sending you cheap, flimsy power cords. These are awesome, and they give you a pair with the amps. One came with the preamp. So you're getting really high quality stuff. So there you go. That's my experience with the AGD amps, the Duets, and the Audions. If these are within your budget, they are a high-end piece. I highly suggest looking at them, checking them out, going to the shows and hearing them. Better yet, getting a set in your room and trying them for yourself. Look up Google people who wrote about them in forums, people who bought them, not the people who never heard them, and see their experiences. So there you go. I'll put a link in the description below to my written review. I'll put a link to the AGD website. You can call them, you can email them with any questions you might have, ask them if they think it'll drive your speaker. They will. And you can also order them if you like. I don't make any commission. I don't get anything like that if you buy a set. And I wasn't paid to make this review. In fact, I spent 5 figures to make this review. So there you go. I will see you guys soon. I will see you in the next one. And have a good day and enjoy listening to your music. It truly does feed my soul, and I hope it feeds yours. I'll see you next time.